بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على البشير النذير السراج المنير صاحب السكينة المدفون بالمدينة حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد، اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين، سيما بقية الله في الأراضين وحجته على الخلائق أجمعين، الحجة ابن الحسن فداه أرواح العالمين. My speech today is about a very consequential, decisive, impactful, and important chapter in the history of Islam. The schism and the segregation of the Muslim nation today is partly because of that era. And it's very important to study and analyze our history, because our history is what defines us. The date is the 18th of Dhul Hijjah, 35 years after the Prophet's migration to Medina, after Hijrah. That's about 24 years after the demise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the place is the holy city of Medina. The city of Medina descended into absolute chaos and anarchy following the assassination and death of the third caliph, Uthman ibn Affan. And when the entire system is built on one person, the caliph, when he is removed, the entire system collapses, falls. This position that the caliph occupied was not meant to be for anyone other than the Prophet himself and someone that possessed the qualities that the Prophet possessed. Why? Because he occupied a position that came with unconditional authority, unlimited powers. There were no laws or regulations that would govern his behavior. One might say, what about the Quran? With the Quran, we have hundreds of denominations and sects today that use the Quran. They interpret the Quran the way they want. Even a terrorist who's about to carry out a heinous crime against children would cite the Quran. That's why the Quran needs an interpreter. The Quran needs someone to come with it, to explain it, to elaborate it, to tell us what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means from this verse and which verse is used for which incident. So this position was supposed to be for someone like the Prophet himself, or like the Prophet, who follows the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the instructions and the directions from the Almighty God subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is another lecture for another night. The transition after the Prophet wasn't a smooth transition. A group of people went to a place called Saqifat Bani Sa'ada, and they chose on behalf of all the Muslims who to rule after the Prophet. Abu Bakr assumed power, and all the Muslims had to forcefully give their allegiance to the first caliph. He ruled for 2 years, from the year 11 till the year 13. And then he appointed Umar to succeed him. And Umar became the caliph from the year 13 until the year 23. So he ruled for 10 years. After Umar, he appointed 6 people to be part of a council. And they gave their vote to Uthman, who ruled for approximately 12 years. He was killed on the 18th of Dhul Hijjah, year 35, after the Hijrah. One of the key players that played an instrumental role in the events that led to the killing of Uthman and in the aftermath was Talha, who was one of the so-called companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But now, because of the chaos that ensued after the assassination of the caliph, people were looking for a person that would unify the Muslims, a person that had the qualities, that is qualified enough to rule, and also has the consensus of the Muslims to rule. And that person is none other than Ali ibn Abi Talib. But Ali ibn Abi Talib was hiding. As opposed to everyone else in the world, when we are offered a position, a political position, people would seek it without a doubt. But Ali ibn Abi Talib rejected it after the death of Umar, and he's not interested in it. Why? Because even if he assumes power, he's not going to take advantage of his position and indulge in the pleasures of this world. He sees it as a responsibility. And he has to become, as I mentioned last night, equal to the poorest person in his nation. That's why he's hiding. He's not even in the city of Medina. But they're adamant to find him, because the Muslims wouldn't unite around anyone, behind anyone other than Ali ibn Abi Talib. And incidentally, the name of Ali was nominated to become the Khalifa immediately after the Prophet, if it wasn't for the events that transpired. And after Abu Bakr, he appointed Umar. And then when it was time for people to choose again, he was nominated. But with a condition, as I mentioned last night, they said to him that the condition that we have to give you the reins of the Muslim empire to rule over 50 countries. We only have one condition, that you follow in the footsteps of your predecessor when it comes to distributing wealth and giving preference to the elites over others in selecting the governors of the provinces. The Imam refused. But now they're adamant to find him, and they found him hiding in a house in the outskirts of Medina. فَمَا رَاعَنِي إِلَّا وَالنَّاسِ كَعُرْفِ الضَّبُعِ عَلَيْهِ. All of a sudden, I saw myself surrounded by a mob, by so many people, like a herd of sheep. The Imam mentions this in one of the most important documents that we have that reveal what transpired after the Prophet. The Imam, in a very short, concise sermon that's mentioned in Nahj al-Balagha, he gives us an insight of what happened after the Prophet. Just 2 pages. And it's very important for everyone to go and read the sermon, study it, analyze it, to gain full understanding of what happened. The Imam said, all of a sudden I saw myself surrounded by all these people. حَتَّى لَقَدْ وُطِئَ الْحَسْنَانِ. They stepped over my toe. What do you want? Ya Ali, you're the only one that can save the day. The only person that the Muslims would unite behind, that the Muslims would follow. The Imam said, أَنَا لَكُمْ وزير خير مني لكم أمير. Look, choose one of the Muslims and I'll be his advisor. People have changed. If the Imam came immediately after the Prophet, he would be able to continue with the legacy of the Prophet. But because of this gap that happened between the Prophet, all these years, 24 years, people have changed. These rulers have ruled differently. So people have changed. I can't guide you anymore. They insisted, they said, Ya Amir, Ya Abul Hassan, if you don't accept to become the ruler, there will be a lot of bloodshed. So they burdened him with this responsibility. The Imam said, I will accept with two conditions. The first condition, don't tell me to follow in the footsteps of my predecessors. I will rule differently. I have my own way. I have the Quran, the Prophet. I'll rule differently. Secondly, choosing a Khalifa shouldn't be behind closed doors and behind the curtains. It should happen in a public venue where everyone can take part in, as opposed to the Saqifa, as opposed to the way Umar was appointed, and as opposed to the Shura that was appointed by Umar. It has to be in the mosque of the Prophet, in front of everyone, and I need a near consensus. They said, okay, Amir al-Mu'minin, Ya Abul Hassan. So the Imam goes to the mosque, and people come. Thousands upon thousands of people come to pledge their allegiance to Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. Everyone except for maybe 10 people who refrained from pledging their allegiance to Ali ibn Abi Talib. Once they gave their allegiance, the Imam asked someone to yell, to scream. Was there anyone who was forced to give his allegiance? They said, Radina anillah wa an rasulih. Now we accept what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose for us and what the Prophet chose for us in reference to Ghadir Khum. I don't think it was a coincidence that the Imam was assumed power and became the Khalifa on the 18th of the Hajj, exactly 25 years after the initial bay'ah that was given to him in a place called Ghadir Khum. 25 years later, on the same day, the 18th of the Hajj, the Imam assumed power. No one was coerced. No one forcefully gave the bay'ah. Absolutely not, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. One of the first people that gave, maybe he was the first person to give his bay'ah, was Talha. The second person was Az-Zubayr. These famous names, companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the first thing that the Imam did, he gave a short sermon, and then he wanted to reverse all the policies of the previous Khalifa, because with the previous Khalifa, the Muslims were not pleased with the way he ruled. He had his relatives from the Umayyads that abused power, and the least we can say is that they mismanaged the affairs of the Muslims. This is why when he was killed, no one stopped them. He was killed and he was left without burial for 3 days. No one would want to bury him. And eventually, when he was buried, he wasn't buried in the Baqi' cemetery where all the Muslims were buried. There was a part of the cemetery that wasn't part of the Baqi' that was allocated for non-Muslims. This is where he was buried. But today, when you go to the Baqi', the people in charge, they changed the map. They would tell you that the person who's buried in the middle of the cemetery, on a hilltop, a nice grave, they say that this belongs to Uthman ibn Affan. While the reality is that the grave in the middle is the grave of Uthman ibn Mad'un, who is a righteous caliph, a righteous companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Uthman is buried towards the very end of the cemetery. So people were not pleased with him. The Imam came to reverse some of the policies. One of the first things that the Imam did was he ordered Ammar ibn Yasir to go to the treasury, to Baytul Mal, and to give each and every Muslim, irrespective of their background, of their color, of their race. Each and every Muslim's share from the money was 3 gold dinars. So they go to the treasury, they go to the Baytul Mal, they count the money, and they find 300,000 dinars in Baytul Mal. Then they ask the Muslims to come to give them the money, their monthly allowance. They count them, and they are 100,000 Muslims. So Ammar said that this is the first sign from God. We didn't know how much the money was, and we didn't know how many people would come. So we had 100,000. Each one takes 3 dinars. Talha and Zubair, they don't come. So they sent someone to give them the money. They refused to take the money. They said that this is not fair. We want to see Ali ibn Abi Talib. We want to make an appointment to meet with him. They said, what appointment? You don't need an appointment to see Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ali ibn Abi Talib is different. He was accessible. Anyone could approach him. Where is he? He's working at a farm, planting a tree, digging a well. If you want, you can go see him. So they ride on the back of their mule and they go to that farm. They see Ali working. They said, Ya Abul Hassan, we want to talk to you. You're more than welcome to talk. They said, not in the sun, let's go in the shade. So they go to the shade. They said, Ya Abul Hassan, this is not fair. 3 dinars for us, just like everyone else, all these peasants, all these people that have become Muslim 2 days ago, we're equal to them. The Imam said, if you have a right over other people that's mentioned in the Quran, I would be more than willing to give it to you, basically. So they said, Ya Abul Hassan, we're different from everyone else. Why? Because we were, especially Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, we were one of the first people to believe in the Prophet, to believe in his message and to become Muslim. How could we be equal to a person who became a Muslim 2 days ago? The Imam said, did you become a Muslim before me? Did you believe in the Prophet before me? Because my share from the money was only 3 dinars. Me and the guy who was working with me, who was with the Imam then, my share is only 3 dinars. Did you become a Muslim before me? And Ali was the first person to believe in the Prophet. Khadija was the first woman, but Khadija wasn't with the Prophet. Ali was with the Prophet in the cave. So he was the first person to believe in the Prophet. A man comes to the grand mosque, Masjid al-Haram. He said that I saw someone bowing down and prostrating before the Kaaba, and a young boy is on his right side praying behind him, and a woman was praying behind them. So I asked Abbas, who's this guy? What is he doing? So Abbas said to me that this is my nephew. He claims that he's a prophet from God. And the boy praying on his right side is my other nephew, Ali. And the woman is his wife, Khadija. They say that Abu Talib came and he told his other son, Ja'far, the brother of Ali, Sil jinah ibn ammik. Be your cousin's left wing. Because Ali is on his right side. Be his left wing. So he prayed before Rasulullah, behind Rasulullah. When the Prophet finished his prayer, he looked at Ja'far and he said, Ya Ja'far, may God give you 2 wings in paradise for praying behind me. So Imam Ali, who was only 10, he looked at the Prophet, he said, what about me, Ya Rasulullah? He said, you? You know what's your virtue? Anyone that becomes a Muslim, believes in me after you, should pray for you. رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا وَلِإِخْوَانِنَا الَّذِينَ سَبَقُونَا bil-Iman. But Ali can't pray for anyone that, believed in the Prophet before him, because there was no one. Anyone that comes should pray for Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is your virtue, O Ali. So he said, did you bring faith in the Prophet before me? They said, no, without a doubt. They said, okay, Ya Abul Hassan, what about we're related to the Prophet. Zubair is the son of Safiya. Safiya is the auntie of the Prophet. He's a cousin of Amir al-Mu'minin and the cousin of Rasulullah. He said, are you closer to the Prophet than me? I'm a brother of the Prophet. The famous story when the Prophet found he tied the knot of Abu Dhar with Salman. He said, this is your brother. Umar is the brother of Abu Bakr. And he just left Ali ibn Abi Talib. So he said, Ya Rasulullah, what about me? He said, you are my brother. And I am his son-in-law. And I am the father of his children. Are you closer to the Prophet than me? My share is only 3 dinars. They said, but Ya Abul Hasan, what about we're veterans. We defended Islam. We fought against the enemies of the Prophet for 23 years. How can we be equal to everybody else? He said, you defended Islam more than me? Just say it. Did you defend Islam more than me? For 7 years. Every time the Prophet slept, when he went to sleep, my father Abu Talib would come, carry him, and place me in his bed, just in case someone wants to kill the Prophet. So I would be the sacrifice. And on the night the Prophet migrated to Mecca, he came to Imam Ali. He said to him that tonight the Arabs, they've come together, they've conspired to kill me. Because Abu Talib is dead, Khadija's dead. They want to kill me. Would you be willing to sleep in my bed and get killed instead of me? He said, absolutely, Ya Rasulullah. And for 23 years, it's the sword of Ali ibn Abi Talib that shielded Islam, that protected Islam. So did you defend Islam more than me? They said, no, Ya Amir. He said, I'm equal to everybody else. You should be equal to everybody else. They didn't like it. What they did was they defected from Ali. And you know, that was a difficult thing for Amir al-Mu'mineen to do. He could have favored them over the others. He could have paid them more money, just like his predecessors, just to keep them. These are his old pals, his old friends. But ما ترك لي الحق من صديق. He wouldn't do it on the expense of his religion. He said, in a very famous quote, he said, Wallah inni a'lamu bidaikum wa dawaikum. I know what your cure is. I know how to cure you. ولكن هيهات أن أصلحكم بخراب نفسي. But I wouldn't cure you on my expense. Because if I give you the cure, if I give you preference over other people and misuse the funds of the Muslims, then you're taking away from my faith. هيهات أن أصلحكم بخراب نفسي. So they had their own circle in the mosque. The Imam would give his sermons, people would congregate. They had their own circles. They had their own circle. They would sit with Marwan ibn al-Hakam and others who did not have a good relationship with Amir al-Mu'mineen. But Amir al-Mu'mineen didn't do anything to them. He wouldn't force them to do bay'ah. He wouldn't force them to listen or nothing. In fact, this is what he told the Khawarij. He said that you have 3 rights over us. The first right is that we have to give you your monthly allowance and basically fund your movement against me. And secondly, you have all the right to do whatever you want. Rally in the streets, shout slogans against me. As long as Muslims are not harmed, you could do whatever you want. And number 3, لا نمنعكم مساجد المسلمين. You could come to the mosques, take part. Back then, the mosque was like a parliament house for the government. In the mosque, they discussed the affairs of the Muslims. You could come to the mosque whenever you want. We can't deprive you from these rights. So they had the right to do whatever they wanted to do. Until one day, they come to visit Amir al-Mu'mineen. The Amir al-Mu'mineen had a light, a lantern. They sat with the Imam. The Imam said, did you come to discuss a personal thing or something that pertains to the affairs of the Muslims? They said, no, we came for a personal reason. So the Imam turned off the lantern, saying that the oil used in the lantern, it belongs to the Muslims. So if it has to do with the Muslims, I keep it on. If it's a personal thing, I can't use it for personal reasons. Amir al-Mu'mineen was very firm. Amir al-Mu'mineen was strict because he wasn't authorized to misuse the power for personal reasons. They said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, the reason why we came to see you is we want permission from you to go to Umrah. We want to perform Umrah. The Imam said, you don't need permission from me, but I know very well that your intention is not to perform Umrah, but to betray me and to break the pact and the allegiance that you gave me. But you're free to go. So they go to Mecca. And in Mecca there were other people who were against Ali ibn Abi Talib as well. One of the people who was in Mecca was the famous wife of the Prophet, who helped create the storm against Uthman. She played an instrumental role. She was a kingmaker. She contributed in the appointment of her father, and then the appointment of the second caliph, and then the third caliph. But there was beef between her and the third caliph. But we'll leave that. It's another lecture for another night. So she created a storm against him, and she issued a fatwa asking the masses, the people, to kill the caliph. She said, "اقتلوا نعثلا فقد كفر," because he committed heresy. And then when the events that were unfolding, it was obvious that they were leading to the removal of the caliph. She went to Mecca to perform Hajj. When she was in Mecca, she saw someone that had come from Medina. She received the news that the caliph had been killed. So her reaction, her response was that his actions killed him. He is to blame for his assassination. Why? Because when the people went to use the Quran to judge between them, he burnt the Quran. And because he sidestepped the tradition of the Prophet, he deserves it. She also received the news that Talha is playing an instrumental role in the aftermath. So she thought he's going to become the caliph. And she was related to Talha. Talha was her cousin. She was happy with the outcome. And then she said, "I finished my Hajj, my pilgrimage, I want to go back to Medina." On the way to Medina, she sees someone that had come recently from Medina. She asked him, "So what's the news?" He told her that Uthman was removed, he was killed, and the people, they leaned towards Ali ibn Abi Talib and they gave their allegiance to Ali ibn Abi Talib. She said, "What about Talha?" She said, "Even Talha gave his allegiance to Ali ibn Abi Talib, with Zubair, with everyone else." She said, "Ata'aqil ma taqul? Do you even know what you're saying?" He said, "Yes, I was there. I witnessed the events unfold." She said, "May the sky fall on the earth. Uthman was killed while he was oppressed. He was persecuted. This cannot happen." So he told her that just moments ago, you were saying that Uthman deserved to be killed. And now you just switch sides. She said, "After he repented, he was killed." Yes, what he did was wrong, but then he repented, and after his repentance, they killed him. This shouldn't have happened. I'm not going to Medina. And she goes back to the holy city of Mecca. Now, our position from Aisha is that we believe that when you have someone who's not fallible, who's not infallible, who's fallible, who can commit sin, now, if you justify his deeds and regard him as a holy person, you're bending the rules. You're destroying the system when you justify their actions. Some might say that if we criticize her, that this will spill over to the Prophet. It's like criticizing the Prophet. The Quran solved the problem when he talks about the wives of Noah and the wife of Lot. Even though they were enemies of the prophets, but the prophets didn't even divorce them until God's wrath came down on them and punished them. So the Quran solved this problem. This has nothing to do with the Prophet. The Prophet has his own file and they have their own file. So let's separate between the two files to be able to discuss these things freely and with an open mind. So she goes to Mecca and she's not happy with the results. Talha and Zubair are also in Mecca. They come to her and they say to her that we want you to use your title to send letters left, right, and center to invite people to join our ranks. And this is what she did. She began writing letters to the tribal leaders, to important individuals. One of the person that she wrote a letter to was a man called Ziyad ibn Abi, who we spoke about last night, the guy who severed the hands of 70 men because of a pebble. This guy is called Ziyad ibn Abi because no one knows who his father was. Ziyad, the son of his father, because traditionally the Arabs, they don't have surnames, so they call you by your name and your father's name. But because this guy didn't have a father, even his mother didn't know who his father was. A number of people took part in his conception. So no one knew who his father was. But he would feel irritated if someone calls him Ziyad ibn Abi. Now, she wants to write a letter to him. She doesn't. He would be happy if he was to belong to someone, but she couldn't lie because everyone knows that his father is unknown. So she writes a letter. The title of the letter was "From the Mother of the Believers to her son Ziyad." When he receives the letter, she says, this took a lot of effort from her because she avoided speaking about my father. From the mother of the believers to her son Ziyad. Fantastic. So she was able to encourage people to join her. One of the things that she did, she didn't want to be alone. That's why she wanted to bring other wives of the prophets on board. She's one of 9. So she wanted this title to be used. She goes to meet with Salama. She goes there. She visits her, who is in Mecca. She said, "Wow, ma kunti liya zawara. You never visited me before." She said, "I came to see you for a reason. Uthman was killed, and I need your help." She said, "My help for what?" She said, "To take revenge." Suddenly Salama yelled. She screamed. Everyone heard her scream. She said, "Just 2 days ago, you were a staunch enemy of Uthman. Now you want to take revenge? You're not even related to Uthman. Why do you want to take revenge? Don't you remember you want to fight against Ali? I mean, of all the people in the world, me and you know exactly who Ali is. We heard the Prophet praise Amir al-Mu'mineen. Didn't the Prophet say, "Silmuka silmi, harbuka harbi, man harabaka faqad harabani"? We all heard these things from the Prophet. And also, keep in mind what the Prophet said about one of us, who said that you will be traveling when the dogs of an area called Hawab will be barking at you. Be careful not to be that wife, because you will perish. You'll go to hell if that's the person, if you're the one that this happens to her. And then she said to her that, "By God, if you revolt, if you rise against Ali, I will never talk to you ever again." Several years later, when she took part in the war, she came to visit her again. She came and then she saluted her. She said, "Salamu alaikum." She didn't respond. Salama. She said, "I'm saying Salamu alaikum to you. Why don't you respond?" Salama said, "Ya ha'it," which is an expression. When your words are falling on deaf ear, you say, "I'm talking to the wall." "Ya ha'it, didn't I warn you?" And she refused to talk to her. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to discuss this story in depth. We'll leave it, inshallah, for another night. But I only wanted to mention this, that eventually, after Salama talked to her, a few hours later, they heard the sound of the camel leaving. And a man from the Umayyads, he said that I will buy 400 camels just in support of this endeavor. The caravan moved from the city of Mecca all the way to Basra. The people of Basra were so surprised because they have nothing to do with the events that happened in Medina. Uthman was killed in Medina, and the people who are related to Uthman are not part of this project against Ali. So they have nothing to do with Uthman, and these people that have come to avenge the blood of Uthman are not even related to Uthman. Now we go to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. After the burial of Amir al-Mu'mineen, that happened in secrecy. Amir al-Mu'mineen was buried at night. He was washed at night. He was shrouded at night. And his will was to hide his burial place. No one knew for 100 years. for close to a century, where Ali ibn Abi Talib was buried. After his burial, Imam al-Hassan and Hussein, they go back to the city of Kufa. The distance is about 7 kilometers. As they were returning to Kufa, they heard a man crying loudly. He lived in a hut, in a very modest home. So they go to see what's wrong with him. They knock the door. Come in. They go inside. Can we help you? Do you need anything? He was a very old man who was also blind. He said, yes, if you can, please help me. He said, there was a man who used to come every single night after midnight, who would come and visit me. He would bring food with him. He would bring milk. He would bring food. And he would feed me. Not only that, he would sometimes take my clothes and wash them for me. And he would sometimes wash me because I'm blind, I am old. Imam al-Hassan looked at Imam al-Hussein and their eyes were filled with tears. They said, could you give us more description of him? He's blind, he can't describe him. He said, I used to ask him about his identity, about who he was. He would say, أنا عبد من عبيد الله. I'm just a slave of God. I'm just a servant of God. I'm a nobody. But there was one sign that he had was that whenever he did tasbih, the walls, the roof, and everything would do tasbih with him as well. And it's been 3 days. I have no news of him. I don't know where he is. So Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussein, they both cried. And they said that this is our father. Do you know who this man was? This man was none other than the Khalifa, the Caliph of the Muslims, Amir al-Mu'mineen, our father, and we just returned back from his burial. يا شهر فيك القدر ناح بليلة غال الشقاء بها الإمام الهاديا أحياك حيدر بالدعاء وكم أحيتك زينب بالبكاء نواعيا لكنما المرجع لله ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Let's recite dua al-faraj together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله